I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, and I'm located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Monroe, Washington. And welcome to Wheel Talk.
All right, we're live.
We are live. Live.
Yes.
Live. Hi, Ryan.
Hi there. How was your Tuesday?
Tuesday was good. Well, last night I went to a Seahawks game for the first time ever.
Yeah, she blew me off from podcasting so she can go watch football.
Oh, and in quotes, Ryan says, "No, that's fine. Go. It should be a really good game."
Exactly. It was a good game.
So,
and it was your first time going to an NFL game, right?
First time going to an NFL game. It was a lot of fun. They won, which is always a good experience for the first time. I didn't have to pay for an Uber to get down because my friend went too, so we carpooled, so that made it extra good. So, yeah. And today's been okay. Did my pot swap piece. Painted them. Then
You painted your second and third pot swap piece, right?
Yeah, the first one really failed. Like, I knew it was going to crack, but I did not know it was going to crack that intensely. I was hoping to cover the cracks, and it was like, oh, I'll just paint this for shits and giggles, and maybe it'll come out. And then, but I always had my backup plan. That was really my first plan. Anyway.
Yeah, and before we came on here, we were discussing what I should do, so I'm still picking my piece out. It's actually early December, so we still got. This probably will release after it's the deadline to send out's over, but
yeah,
people will be receiving them right in the thick of this. So.
So yeah, and got some mugs made, and gonna go back and make some more after this. So
nice. I'll get some studio
time
after this too. Work on a Tuesday, kind of same old. My studio assistant was over today. She was mixing up some glaze for me. She weighed out all the raw material last week, so she was actually putting it through a sieve and all that good stuff today. So that got done. She slipped some cups. I'm really just telling you what she did because it sounds more productive. And glaze some pieces. So I'm going to head to the studio here soon. I got some good throwing in the last couple days, though. It's been nice to get back to the wheel and throw some stuff. I cannot hear you.
Sorry, that was a mute moment. Does your assistant do that stuff while you're working your regular job?
Yeah, so she came at 2:00 today, and she worked for 2 hours. So I basically just kind of let her in, give her the rundown on what I like done, and then she pretty much works pretty unattended and stuff for the 2 hours, and
that just
pay her, and she's on her way.
To text my helper person today, and I didn't.
It's hard to keep up with, especially when normally Alex comes on Tuesdays. She used to come on Mondays, but I have Baker Hunt classes on Mondays normally. So it's you get through the weekend and normally have a show or something going on. So I got to remember to think about what's ready in the studio and
right.
Can I let her know enough in advance to not flake on her? And then I normally have Megan here later in the week. So I've got at least a couple days to figure it out. But
the hard part for me is relinquishing the duties. Does that make sense? Okay, you're equipped enough to do glaze mixing, or okay, you're not equipped enough to do this, but then we'll do this. But
I'm sure you're around the first time they do it, so you can supervise and kind of guide them, and then you kind of gauge their work afterwards and make sure it's good, and then.
I also have this this fear of making somebody else clean for me because I don't know, it's this silicosis fear that I have, and I'm if anybody's gonna get silicosis, it should be me.
Oh, so that's the part you fear. See, I was more worried about having somebody clean up after me because I feel like a lazy ass.
No, I know I'm not a lazy ass.
Mop my studio. So I'm I don't want to spend time in the evening mopping my studio.
No, I just don't know. My studio is 3,000 square feet. So saying, hey, mop the studio is like not that big of an issue because they have a lot of space to cover, but like doing like the in-depth cleaning part, that's the kicker.
But you're also not
So,
the only one in that studio. I'm like solely in my studio, so I'm basically
yes,
like anything you clean up is directly
related to
from
being
me.
messy.
Yeah.
That's
But
true.
I don't know, maybe my studio is very kept, but there's a lot of stuff in it. I don't know.
Look at us hoarding our stuff.
But yes. So I'll be making some more tonight and just kind of working off my list. I started making a list for the winter with like some big numbers on it, and then I'm starting to dwindle down those as I make stuff.
Oh, we should share our lists next time.
Our lists for the upcoming like months and stuff.
Yes.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, cool. So, what are we talking about today, Ryan?
So we did that previous podcast about people transitioning from being in a community studio to maybe having your own studio. So this one, we're going to kind of talk to the folks that are probably in my boat or similar that are thinking about transitioning from making on the side or a side hustle, or maybe you're selling some stuff and you are running out of time and it's taken away from your day job. Maybe you're thinking about transitioning to full time. So
And what
this
full
is
time really looks like.
Yeah. So Becca's been doing full-time pottery for how many years?
5 years.
5 years. So
Wow,
she has
time
5
flies.
years.
And
That's
yesterday,
crazy.
December 1st.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yesterday, December 1st, was my 2-year anniversary. 2-year we didn't fail yet anniversary at the shop.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I've had a brick and mortar for 2 years now.
Wow. See, I couldn't believe it's been 2 years, because when I saw that, I was like, really? It's been that long? But then when you see the space and it looks so, like, empty, you're like, wow, okay. Yeah, I guess it has been 2 years.
I miss the empty space.
You just inherit so much stuff that you're like, okay.
That's what happens. I remember one of my teachers when I was Larry Bruning. He goes, well, this is what happens when you become a potter. People just give you shit for free. You just get the shit for free.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's so true. Like, I was like, oh, I bought this kiln for $175, and he's like, I got that kiln for free, and that kiln for free, and that kiln for free. And now I've given away 5 kilns, I think, that I've gotten for free. 5.
Given away? Nice.
Yeah, like, I get them for free, and then I look at them, and I see if I can use them, and then I give them to somebody else that will actually use it. And, you know, it just, like, kind of, like, progresses to that end.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure they get used, but, yeah.
Right.
Sure. Okay, so, the first thing.
First things first is Becca and I have completely different perspectives on this. She has a way different personality than I do, so I'm going to approach it completely different.
So let's hear your perspective. Well, this is what we call the perspective and the reality perspective. No, I'm kidding.
Because I'm a perspective because I haven't actually gone through it.
Yeah.
And you're a reality because you jumped in.
Okay, what's your...
I don't know. So,
under what circumstances would you start full-time pottery? Let's start with that.
So, in my... I don't want to say ideal, but in my situation, I would want to have money saved up. That could be at least, for sure, 3 to 6 months probably of bills.
Right, and keep in mind, Ryan's married with cat kids.
I'm married. I have 2 kitties and a mortgage.
So he doesn't have kids, real human kids.
I have kittens, 2 cats.
Kittens. And I'm not married with 3 cats.
Yeah. And
but I'm not a cat lady. They live at the studio.
We're both 28 years old. Is that right? You're 28 as well?
I'm 29. I'm a year
29.
older than you.
What?
I'm a year older than you.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you're older than me. Okay.
A year.
Yeah, so...
so we don't have the perspective of having kids and that, but he does have the perspective of having to really consider his wife. I don't have to think about anybody.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm coming from. So the bills and stuff would be paying mortgage, paying whatever. We own our vehicles, but stuff like that. So 3 to 6 months of that for sure saved up. And I would also probably want more. I don't know. It's so hard to relate the numbers. So to be honest, I'm going from a 6-figure income, salaried, with health insurance, benefits, 401k. I put money into stock options that helps me buy the company stock at a discount. I have dental insurance, I have vision insurance, all that stuff. So that's probably hard to get an idea of what those numbers actually mean when you're not at a corporation or a business that has all that.
And yeah, so what I'm hearing from you and what everybody else is thinking is, if you left that, you'd be an absolute idiot.
Yes.
For making much, much less money, not having insurance, not having 401k, not having all the other things.
Exactly.
So that's something that you really have to consider when you are considering going full-time.
Yeah, and I enjoy my job, so I don't completely despise it, and it's not draining and sucking the life out of me every day. I have it pretty nice. So besides the money, the money also is obviously a factor. Like, would I do the same job if it didn't pay as much? Maybe not. Maybe. I mean, the money is definitely a factor. So I would probably struggle a lot more, and I probably wouldn't enjoy the pottery as much if I was jumping from that to the pottery directly, and I'd have to work a lot harder. I can't end the week and I don't have thousands of dollars sitting in the pot because I made that from that week. Like, I've got to do a lot more work to get those to make that money. So ideally, I would have money saved up. I would bridge that gap between what I'm making income-wise in the pottery selling for a year in relation to the salary. And I want to lessen that gap so that when I can see that I don't have enough time to meet the demand of, what I can produce and what I can sell, I think that's the main factor of when I would decide to go full time. And, maybe that is a kind of a hybrid situation where maybe I ask my company if I can go part time and see if there's a 30-hour option or something like that. And I can still work, pretty much, a 30-hour job instead of 40 hours. And then, maybe the extra 10 hours can be used to grow the business a little more. And I kind of slowly work my way. I don't think it's going to be a hard and fast, like, leave one day and then on pottery the next day. It's not going to be that immediate. And also, like, when we say full-time potter, like, I'm not under the assumption that I'm just going to be making and selling pottery and that's it. Like, I'm going to be teaching classes because that makes me money. I'm going to be doing other things that may make me money, whether it's, maybe the podcast at this point. Maybe we would have sponsors to pay for our podcast, and maybe it'll put a little extra money in our pocket.
Hint, hint. Hint, hint. Hint, hint. No, I'm kidding.
Maybe I have other gigs where I do consultant work or something like that makes me money using my, like, technical skills, or, teaching workshops about Instagram or something like that. Like, something else that's not just sitting at a wheel making pots and selling pots. So I don't consider it full-time. When I say full-time pottery, I don't mean, like, just making pots. So,
well, and I think that's the reality too, because the reality actually almost is that I think right now you make more pottery than I do. I mean, you don't make more pottery, but you spend more time in your studio throwing than I do.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You're way more productive than me. I'm faster than you, but you're way more productive.
Yeah.
I'm just really good at being lazy. I'm kidding, I'm not. Yeah, so that is Ryan's ideal situation of um, transitioning. I think that is a great. I think it's good to like have that ideal situation. I also think it's really good to have a business plan as well. If you are going to transition, business plans are helpful. And if somebody tells me that they're not helpful, you can suck it because
And by business plan, you're talking about, besides just the theoretical of I'm going to do this and it's going to sell this much.
right. I mean,
Like,
even
do you
it's just
also
like a
base the
goal, right?
okay?
You know, like you're gonna have to make a business plan anyway if you want to get a loan for anything in the future. You know, uh, the banks want to see your business plan or your trajectory for the next year. That's really smart. It's important to know that you will be the bookkeeper unless you hire one, which I suggest if you have enough money to. And you will be the person that picks up your stuff, that does all the things, like all the, you know, all the behind the scenes work. That's that gets passed on to you as well. So it's funny because I feel once you become, I don't know, I don't know if in the part time business, like the part time potter universe. I remember when I did it part time, it was like all throwing, and I like worried about the books later, and now it's like all books, and I worry about the throwing later almost. You know, it's like, okay, how am I doing on all this stuff? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably throw like 50 mugs today so that I can.
Do you mean you're all booked because you're checking how much you've sold and what
Yeah,
the
and
money looks like on a weekly basis or something like that?
well, yeah, or like getting up and being like, oh, I should probably plan my classes out for the year. Like I've, started putting in classes on my website today. And oh, I have to order things for that. And oh, I have to go get clay. And oh, I have to do this. There's like a lot of different things that you have to do that you're getting ready for that when you have like a part-time kind of situation, but it becomes like all you know?
If you go that route and
Right.
decide to teach classes and stuff, like where I teach, I basically just commit to I'm going to do it these 8 weeks and this night, and then they handle all the registration and they have the materials and all that stuff.
Right.
So
So if
yeah,
you taught
there are
classes at
options.
your own studio or, you taught classes and it was all your responsibility to do all of the, analytical stuff and the data entry and all that stuff, that's something that's passed on to you that sometimes people hate that part of the business. I personally enjoy that part. But yeah, so that's something that I think some people don't realize is going to happen where it essentially becomes like 60% business, 40% throwing and making, you know, where you just kind of have to like balance your life a little bit better, your life becomes more of a schedule. Like I go down to the clay supply place every other Monday, and that Monday I know that I'm gonna waste 3 hours of my day going down there, and that's the way it is. And I could get it delivered, but it'd have to be a large amount of clay, and I don't want to do that. So I don't need 4,000 pounds right now. So,
Mm-hmm.
but and also you have to, really think about your whole shift focuses on the money when you're in business alone by your when you do full time pottery because with part time you at least have your paycheck that is coming in on a regular consistent basis and when you're doing full time anything doesn't matter if it's pottery or photography or whatever what you have to like make things happen to get the money, right? It's not consistent. Like this month I have 4 wholesale checks. One of them's coming in 15 days. One of them got dropped off yesterday, so it should be coming sometime in the next week. One of them just got sent to me, but it'll take 6 days to clear in the bank. Like, all these things are happening. My rent's due on the 5th. I got to make sure I have enough money for that. I also just bought $1,200 of kiln shelves, which is ridiculous. And, but I like them. That's
Wow.
fine. I know. Sucks. Advancer shelves are so good. They're so expensive.
But did you have existing shelves that you could use in the meantime, or was it
Yeah. I
these are
broke
so
one.
much better, it's worth it to...
No, yeah, I broke one of my Advancer shelves. Or it broke. I didn't break it, but it broke. And so with that, I'm getting a free one back for them because I don't know, if they were just nice about it. And then I was like, well, I might as well give you more of my money. So that that happened. But there's all those things that come into play that you don't really think about, and the
Do you
expenses.
do you think that changes your... I mean, I'm sure it changes your mindset, but if you're at a show, you're doing this full time, you rely on the money, you need the money a lot more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Does that change your mindset when you're talking to customers, you're selling? I mean, I think it needs to be more, I guess, not as visible, or not like the customer shouldn't see that.
Oh, I make it very clear.
But I don't know. Maybe I'm just different. Maybe
I'm like,
I want to be kind and like talking to them and whatever. I don't think I need to tell them like I do this on the side and I don't need it, but if they ask, I'll tell them I'm doing this on the side, but
right.
then they see the quality and they see the like amount of stuff and they assume that I do it full time. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe,
And people
I
are
don't...
always like, they come into my booth and they say, "Oh, did you make all this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Really? All of it?" And I'm like, "Yeah. It's my full-time job."
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Wow." I think it also has a little bit to do with the fact that I am a woman that is inherently in that, and that I'm young,
What does
like
that
a
mean? That
young.
you own the business and that you do this solo? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like people like not believing that I made everything in my booth, you know, like
But what's that got to do with you being a woman, though?
no, woman and young,
Oh,
woman and young. So like it'd be one thing if I was 45 and I was a female and I'm like sitting there and all of my pots are around me and they're like, "Oh yeah, I could see this, like, yeah, you're a female potter, that's great." But I'm under 30 and I am a female and they're like, "You've made all of these?" I'm like, "Yes, I did."
I guess I just don't see it because I have so many female friends that are in my area that are around the same age as me that make, and they either do it, I don't know if they do it full time, but they do it like close to full time.
Right.
But I don't know.
They probably get those comments too. And you
Okay,
just
maybe
don't
I'm
realize
just
it.
completely oblivious to it. I don't know.
I mean, it's
I'm
just
sure
a
there are
thing that,
completely things that as a male, whatever, like I am completely oblivious to certain situations.
right, and that's fine. That's totally fine.
Experiences. Yeah.
And like, but it happens with the business too. It's like, "Oh, you own your own business?" And it's mostly the young part because they're like,
Are
"You're
they other young people or are they like
No, they're
older
older
people?
people. They're like people in their 50s. They're like, like when I was 25, you're 25 and you own a house and you own your own business?" Yes.
Do they say "you go girl" or something, or like
Well, yeah,
are they
usually they're like, "That's
supportive or...
amazing." And I'm like, "Is it though? Is it amazing or is it
It
just
sounds like they're trying to shit on millennials and then they're like, "Oh, you're not that mold, so I can't shit on you."
maybe." I don't know, but like yeah, I mean, like, is it amazing that I own my business, or is it just like, I think it's amazing that anybody owns their own business. Like,
Right.
it doesn't matter if you're 75 or 25. It's like so hard.
Yeah.
But so to get back to kind of Ryan's perspective on how it should be versus, I'm not going to say how it is, but how I did it.
I have one more question before you go.
Go on.
One other thing that I would say that is going to definitely help me is you should have, I want to say data, but I want to have proof that I can make a certain amount of money.
Right. Yeah.
So I can't just assume that because I have more time that it's automatically going to scale to selling way more at this show. Like, what steps are you making? What improvements are you making that you're going to sell more at this show the next year versus the previous year? Or what are you going to do to have a better show coming up?
Right.
Are you marketing more? Are you making new items that have a demand that are going to fit the customer base that is at the show? Stuff like that. So I keep crazy records of analytics of what I've sold previously, so I know what I've sold at this one show over the last 3 years. So I can confidently estimate what I think I'm going to sell because of, how my sales have been this year in general, and then also like what sold well at that event last year. I'm going to improve and, get a better understanding of what's going to sell so that I can be confident in, what I can sell and make money at.
Right. So everything that Ryan just said
just
before
assuming that because I have more time that automatically it's going to mean more money.
Right. Everything that he just said before that, I did none of that. Like all of that stuff about like analytics, and then all of that stuff about saving money, and then all of that stuff about having a job that made more money, and then like switching. I did none of that. Except
I don't think a lot of people can just say, okay, I'm just going to work this other job and make a bunch of money and then jump ship.
Not a lot of people can do that. So I'll just give you a little background of how I did it. I was working a job and I was probably making, I want to say I was making about $60,000. 40 to 50 to 60, somewhere in there, because I was doing a lot of overtime. And I was working for a paint company, and that was my small business background. And then I also, like a painting company, I also worked for Sherwin-Williams, which was a paint company. I was the manager, or assistant, so I had the big business side. And so once I had 2 years in on the small business,
So you were doing like house painting and stuff? Is that what you mean?
I was the office manager, but yeah.
The office manager at a small business, okay. And you were doing overtime at that job, or you were working both?
Yeah.
Sherwin-Williams and that?
Yeah, I was working like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, so.
Oh, wow, okay. And that was like 5 day a week sort of thing?
Yeah, so it wasn't like a yay, let's go to work and have a great time. So I ended up quitting that job, and I had $6,000 saved up from a thing. I inherited some money, and so that wouldn't have been normally what had happened. And I was doing pottery part-time. I had already had a deal with, no, I was right in the middle of my deal with Starbucks, where I was making a bunch of pieces for them for their opening for the roastery. That was a one-time thing, and I was kind of like gaining a little bit momentum on social media and wherever. Not really though, actually. And and so then I just it was kind of a traumatic moment, and then I went to my friend's house and she was like, "That's it. How much money do you have?" And I was like, "I have $6,000." And I'm crying. And she was like, "Okay, you're going to start doing pottery full time."
Was this because you were struggling understanding how you were going to meet the demand of the Starbucks order?
Say that one more time.
Was it because you were struggling to meet the demand and the delivery time of the Starbucks order in relation to your day job?
No, I was fine. Yeah, day job. So I was fine. It was the day job. And so I also had just moved around that time, I believe. So it must have been after Starbucks. So I said, okay, I have $6,000. We mapped out all of my bills, and that paid for me for 3 months. Okay, so I still did the bill thing.
So the $6,000 covered your bills for 3 months.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how, but it did.
And you were you selling besides just that Starbucks order? So that was like one big wholesale order or something.
I was selling on Etsy and like doing a few shows, but not really, like a few indoor shows. And so that was in October, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. And then I like went all in, and I got into this humongous show at the Tacoma Dome, and did that show, and it was like super scary, and I only made $1,200. And
was that like a weekend show though? $1,200 isn't bad. But did you pay like $400 to get in or something,
like
or
$600? I don't even know.
Oh, okay.
It was a lot.
But you made $600.
Right. And I just went like completely all in. I got into all of the Christmas shows that I could, and I just signed up for every single thing that I could do. And with that, I just kind of like just did it. I don't really know how I did it, but we did it. And I didn't have very much money. I did go into debt. That was great.
Was that pre 3 months of bills being paid, or was that like
That was
after
post.
that? After you?
That was
Okay.
post 3 months.
So the 3
And
months was getting you through the end of the year. You were selling at all these shows. You were kind of racking up some money to save for the winter.
Yep. And then I got through, and then I just kind of kept trekking on. And I think that was the time where I started, that Christmas was the time where I started doing all of the glazing and everything in my shop, or in my studio, my home studio. And then I just like really pushed it hard in the community. I started selling to my community as opposed to online, which I think helped me succeed. And I also lived on the super cheap, like super.
How are you selling to the community? What do you mean by that?
Like, I would do, I focused on like the Facebook in the community, and like going on to Monroe pages. I knew a ton of people from my previous jobs, so networking, and then a lot of church sales. Church was big for me because it was, a ton of different people at church wanted to support and also wanted mugs, and so I sold to a lot of people at church, did a lot of custom orders, and just kind of like did it that way. And
was that a lot of just chatting with them after service and stuff, and you're just like, hey, how's it going? And then when you go into the like, yeah, I'm running my own pottery business or whatever, I've been doing it for the last like 3 months or whatever, and that's kind of your like catching up with people, and then
and like
they know some people that are looking for this, or they're like, oh, you do that? I always were interested in that. Do you have some?
And like people knew too, they knew that I like stopped doing what I was doing, and then it kind of because I had already established quite the like presence on Facebook, because that's where most of my people come from, like this Facebook presence. And so, and I think I'd already done like, I did a garage sale in October. Like, it was a pottery garage sale, and I sold everything for like $1 to $3, and I made like $1,500. Like, that's how much stuff I had. And that was at my house, and like people just came. And so I kind of like built up that community presence, and I've always had that. That's always been my core through the whole, like.
Do you think that's a small town thing?
It must be. It must be.
Because I was like, my community is millions of people in Cincinnati. It's like, I'm like nervous of having like a home studio sale at the holidays, because I'm like, is anybody gonna come?
Yeah, so and I feel like, and you also don't go to church too, so that's kind of the thing. Not. If you're a churchgoer, that is definitely use that in your back pocket. God wants you to succeed too. Let's be real. But so that helped me out a lot, right? And just kind of like being on top of keeping up the books, and keeping up invoicing and selling, and I think I made $20,000 my first year, like total, like $20,000
selling before expenses and everything.
Yeah, selling, and then I probably
that's pretty good though for your first year.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty good.
I made $40,000 the next year. I made $70,000 the next year. Maybe I've been doing it for 4 years. No, I don't know. I skipped 1 year.
And you always pretty much lived modestly, anyways, on the cheap. And so what would you say your net would be? Were you spending a lot of money up front at the early days because you were having issues with the kilns, or having enough clay, or?
Yeah, I felt like I was probably spending a fair amount of money, but I also, my net, I think that I can't go back too far, but I believe that last year I took out $20,000.
Were you netting about like 50% or something? So your expenses were only about half of what you're making?
My expenses are really high.
Oh, okay.
They always happen, and they probably always will be. Let's see. So
Live searching for
live
money
searching.
stuff.
Last year, run report. Last year, I was I profited 13. No, that's not right. Well, let's look at my owner's draw. My owner's draws were.
Is this what you took out of the business? Is that what you mean by owner's draw?
Yeah, what I took out of the business. Now what I took out. But I have a lot of things on the business that it's paid for. So last year it looks like my owner's draws were 11,154.
And that's basically any personal money that's doing things that are not business and going out, entertainment,
yeah, that's
eating,
personal money.
Single life.
And the year before,
doing stuff.
Oh, come on. And the year before, I probably think it was at like 20. Last year I had a roommate, so that helped. And the year before it was 26,000. So I actually made the most money in 2017.
But you actually took out or just profit? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that I took out. And my QuickBooks actually doesn't go past that.
Is that because you didn't have the shop at that time?
No, I switched over to QuickBooks at that time. So I had different accounting software. So it's all in paper. It's just somewhere else.
Oh, okay.
And then this year I've pulled out as an owner's draw $9,584. So that's how much I quote unquote live off of a year. So owning a business is not for the weak at heart. Now, I probably am not the best business owner. You know, I'm not like looking to make the most money of all things. You know, I don't need to do that. I can live pretty dang cheap, and I'm pretty okay with that. There's a lot of people like Rebecca Graves has like the best business ever, and I feel like she does a really good job with kind of like expenses versus.
Yeah, I'm sure she's got so much data and stuff.
Oh yeah, she's like crazy, and then they do so much volume, it's insane. And she also has a ton of employees and all those things. I'm like a one-man show. I have a few employees, but not really. Seasonal kind of people that help out, and but it's just, I think that the biggest thing is you just have to find out what works for you and what's comfortable. Like, even though I pulled out $9,000 this year, I feel like I've lived quite well this year, you know?
Yeah, it's all relative to what you do. I mean, there's baseball players and professional athletes that make millions of dollars and they spend millions of dollars. It's like, it's all relative to what you're comfortable spending your money on, what you're making, and like in relation to that, you know, how happy you are and stuff like that. So
yeah, and like this year, you know, I think we're at about, I want to say like $75,000. Oh, maybe not. This year. This year we're at. Well, I think I'm neck and neck with last year, so that's kind of cool for this year. I'm at. Oh, I guess it says 57,615. And I have way more expenses. So I'm actually a little less than last year. And last year was a big push for me because it was, you know, just one of those years that I had a lot of energy. And I don't have as much energy this year. But I made $74,520 last year in the business, which isn't a lot of money. But for one person to make that much off of the things that you make,
that sounds pretty good, actually.
I mean, that's
before
the
expenses,
sales.
But I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
but I mean,
that
sounds pretty good.
My net operating income was $1 short, 99 cents short of $13,000. So, yeah. So, I mean, it's totally doable, and I'm still growing my business. It's not like I'm, and I feel like I'm more of a relatable business person because I've never been famous. I'm not Instagram famous. I don't have a billion
You're more
followers
the
on
everyday
Instagram.
person that's, yeah.
Yeah,
It's still,
so,
you're still figuring it out. I mean, everybody's pretty much figuring it
right.
out, but
And, and I've had to, like this year, I've had to pay for kilns and things, and it's just so much money has gone out of the business that it's been hard to get money back in. And this year I took out a $10,000 business loan. I started my business, the brick and mortar, with a $10,000 business loan from my parentals that I pay back, just like every other loan. It was just easier to go through them than a business, like a bank. And so I think that being smart about the debt you have. So I think as of now, all I've gotten in loans, quote unquote, is $20,000 for
okay.
a full-fledged brick and mortar store is pretty good. I've been very fortunate. I didn't have to do a lot of remodeling to my store. Um, we just did with what we had, which a lot of people won't do, but it worked out in my favor. But sometimes you get into spaces and you have to remodel, and that can take upwards of $30,000 to $50,000, and that's a
Yeah,
lot. And I don't
it
think that
is a lot.
I wouldn't have done it if I had to like put in. I could never be in debt $40,000. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Not for like a business loan.
What, do you have any ideas on maybe you're in a situation where you're doing this on the side and you have other forms of debt like student loans or vehicles
Yeah.
or stuff like that? Like, should you prioritize getting some of those lowered or off the table before doing something risky like jumping ship to, you know,
Yeah, I
money
would
and
say
like a
look
small
at
business kind
your
of thing?
look at your vehicle debt. If you have student loan debt, I don't it's so low interest that that should be your last debt that you take care of, in my opinion.
Depending
Uh,
on your interest rate and
yeah,
stuff.
depending on your interest rate, but like mine was really low interest. Um, but for some people, it's just like an astronomical number. But it's still low interest and it's still low payments. So it just, I mean, it's unfortunate if you can get out of college without debt, that'd be great, but that's not the reality for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say credit card, get your credit cards down as much as you can before you start. And try not to use your credit card. Try to use a debit card, especially when you're buying clay.
Yeah.
And
Unless you can just pay it off, but not a lot of people can just do that, I guess.
not a lot of people can just do that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and be like, if you can, and if you are one of those people, be really vigilant about paying it off. Like, if you go to the clay store and you buy $350 of clay, go home and pay off $350 on your credit card. you know, like,
Right.
don't just let it sit there. Um, it's great to have an emergency fund that has come in handy, especially come taxes. Uh, when you should have been saving your money for sales taxes and then you didn't.
Oh,
So
yes.
remember, that's the government's money, not yours.
Yeah. Do you, so you've been in your business 5 years. How do you pay your sales tax and then your income tax? How do you handle that? Is it a quarterly or bi-yearly?
Quarterly.
Quarterly. For all of it?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
I don't really pay the income tax thing. I let my accountant do that. That's yearly because I haven't made enough money income wise. So it's that part I don't really understand.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I
we were, the last couple of years, we owed something, I think 2 years ago, like $1,500 or something like that. And then, they were kind of building out sort of like estimates for me to pay quarterly. Like, you should pay $400 quarterly or whatever, or $600 quarterly and whatnot. based on how big I was scaling and stuff, and then just to get on top of it so I don't owe a bunch at the end of the year. Not that it really makes a difference when I pay it. It's just so I can, get an idea of how much I should be setting aside. Not really setting aside for me personally, but to get an idea of how much is going to be spent on income tax.
Yeah. Oh, can I make a correction? Because I'm looking back at my reports. I've made $72,000 this year. So I am neck and neck with last year. I was reading the wrong number. But in expenses, I've spent $61,000. So.
Versus what last year? What did you spend in expenses last year?
I think it was like 50.
Okay. But that's going to tear off into next year, ideally, because you're not going to be spending so much on kiln shelves and kilns. Didn't you buy kilns this year and kiln shelves and...
I spent so much money this year.
And electrical work for your kilns.
It's so stressful. So stressful. And also, I think we should say that when you start your own business and it's just your thing, it is not a matter of if you have the motivation or if you have the drive or if you have the passion or creativity that day. It is a matter of, sorry, you have to pay the bills. Get your ass in the studio and get to work. Like, you can take mental health days, but it's not one of those things where it's like, I just don't feel like this today. I think I'll take today off. Like, that's not a reality ever. It's... Yeah. It's just not. Like, you have to pay the bills, so you have to get in and do your work.
I like hearing you say that even as, like, a single person that doesn't have dependents or anything that you have to pay bills for. It's also for your sake because you have your own bills and stuff that besides other people that depend on you.
Right. Yeah. So it is an actual job. I've heard people say, they're like, I just want to own my own business so that I can go on vacations and do all these things. And it's like, well, yeah, that would be great. Like, I was texting Ryan this morning, like, when do we get back from Claycon West and when do we get there? And the reason I was doing that was because I'm planning out all my classes for the year, and I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to have to be gone this one day, and it's right in the middle of my classes, and that's going to be really annoying. Then I have to find somebody to cover it, and then I have to do this and this and this. That's just like if you were going on vacation and you had to find somebody to cover your shift. If you worked at a pizza place or something like that. You're still losing, and every day that you're not working, you're not making money. Yeah, you could go on a month-long vacation. That's fine. I mean, but you're not going to make money during that time. Unless you have some sort of passive income, like unless you're selling something from China.
Or unless you can, like, consult with people, or that's part of your business that you have consulting to do digitally or something like that.
Right. Yeah, so, but we work with our hands, and that's a big part of it. And a lot of the times when you're doing pottery, unless you can figure out how to have people throw just like you, you're the one that has to do the bulk of the work. And of course there are production potters for that. And, that's ideal if you can get to that point. Also, you have to break a lot of ideals, I think. Like, I'm always like, I just want it to be my stuff. I want to be the one that did the work, and I want to be the one that I put my name on it. But it's like, no, this is my brand.
I thought you were saying, like, I want to make what I want to make, and people should buy it, kind of thing.
No, it's like, I think that we feel an ownership as like potters or makers, and it's like, I've kind of had to switch my thinking of, this is my brand. Like, we made this, maybe.
Yeah.
Reagan
it's not less, it doesn't have less integrity because some people helped you along the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. It doesn't have less integrity because Reagan made 500 of those tiny pinch bowls. Like, she made those for you, and she's making you money, and you're giving her money, and that's the way the economy works. Like, that's the way it should be. And, but to be able to let go, that can be kind of hard. Find the things that you don't have to work on.
When do you think it's worth deciding where you should delegate things? Like, I don't know, when you're going into it full time, should you kind of trim the fat and kind of remove any excess expense that's kind of a nice to have, or should you, like, is it worth the investment to have delegate and like pay people to do certain things like that?
I think that, I mean, personally, this is not, I have no professional insight on this, but personally, I think that at the very beginning, you kind of have to do it all yourself, and just because you're trying to figure out what's what in your business. But once you get a little bit more established, yeah, like having somebody make all of your plant stakes for you that literally take, like, a 12-year-old could do it if you taught them, like, that is totally fine. Having somebody and paying them for it, like, you just have to think of your time, right? Is my time better spent on the wheel throwing, or is it better spent making 100 of these bowls that are going to be sold for $4 each? Like,
Yeah. So the only time that you might touch those bowls is loading them in and out of a kiln, and that's
right.
it.
Or if I need them in time and she's made them and I have to clean them off. Like, that's the only time.
I love it.
Oh no, it's fantastic. Like,
and you're making probably the highest profit on like some of those kind of pieces.
Yeah. And I mean, I could pay her per piece too. I could pay her 25 cents a piece. I would almost rather do that sometimes, but because then that makes them work harder. But yeah, I mean, like, once January starts, we're gonna start making plant stakes, and I plan on having thousands of plant stakes for this year, and they're gonna be done by the time, like, Leavenworth starts, and I hopefully won't have to have made a single one.
That's why I love this kind of work stream, even though it's kind of like slow months in the winter, but you get to focus on things to get you prepared for the heavy season.
Yeah.
So, like, you're saying you want thousands of these. That's why I think talking about our list would be fun in the future episodes, to be like, all right, what are your plans for this winter? And then how are you trending along that?
Oh my God, it's perfect. We can have our, instead of a New Year's resolution, it'll be our New Year's list-olution.
And then we were going to talk about goals too. Maybe maybe that'll be part of a goals episode or something, like, where we talk about 2020 goals, or reflecting on 2019 and numbers where we finalized. And then
was it in October where we said we wanted to make a certain amount of money in the last few months? From October until I said no.
Don't ruin it.
No. Okay.
Cliffhanger.
Do you remember what date it was?
The episode?
No, like, do you remember when we were talking about it? Was it early October or late October?
Oh, it was probably early October, I think.
I'll do mid-October and see. Oh, wow. Mid-October and early October are really different. Yeah, well, I mean, that'll be cool to talk about that. But yeah, I don't know if that's what people wanted to hear about, like, going full-time, but I think that, it's just so different, and it's just...
Yeah, and we're two people that are late 20s that don't have a bunch of dependents or other people depending on us, and my path is completely different than Becca's path and what so most people can realistically do. Yeah. But also, like, when I was going to college, I planned to be in this degree, in this career, because it paid well. Because in the end, I wanted to be able to do pottery full-time someday. Like, I didn't just fall into this. So as much as it sounds like I'm privileged to just have this situation, I also, like, went to college with this in mind. So I was 17 and 18 years old planning to do this thing. So, and I knew it was going to be a long time, I guess, to get to the point of doing it full time, which is totally fine with me. But yeah, I think if you can go that road and save a bunch of money and invest and have that work for you, then, and it's not going to suck the life out of you to do that kind of work or whatever.
I'll let you know in a couple of years if my life is sucked out of me. It's almost there.
Well, I meant the sucked out of you, like, in whatever profession you're doing, if it's not pottery, because you feel like you can't be happy unless you're doing pottery full time or something like that out of college,
Yeah,
I
I
guess.
definitely also think that like you have to consider your day job and how it makes you feel, and if you're, um, if you are happy, because if you're not happy, then you need to change what you're doing and figure out what you're doing. Because even in full time pottery, I'm not particularly happy right now, just because of where I'm at. But I've been changing things like, oh, well, maybe I'll just paint this pot differently or do something. And I've been like, pot swap has really helped with my mental, you know, scope of things, and constantly changing the way my pieces are made, or like little tips and tricks. That's what keeps me going every day. It's not like, like at the beginning of when I was doing pottery, it was like, this glaze is so cool, and this shape is so cool, and now it's like, I figured out how to make that pot 1 minute less. Like 1 minute less time, and that is freaking awesome. It's completely changed, but I like the way it's changed too. If the faster I become, the more excited I get. The more efficient I become, the more excited I get. As opposed to, I found this really cool technique. It takes me 4 hours, but I got it. Um,
Yeah.
your goals kind of shift in that regard. So.
And you probably have to keep your whatever effort and time you're putting into something, it has to relate to money at some point.
Yeah.
Of how can I sell this thing rather than just doing it for the pleasure without the intent to sell it.
Yeah, some of the best advice that I got from Larry Bruning was, he was like, I can't exactly remember how he said it, but he basically said, it's all fun and it's fine, but when you get to a point where you have to provide for somebody else or provide for yourself for the bills, that's when you find out if you can hustle or not. Like he started doing pottery in his like late 20s and married somebody who was along for the ride with him. Like literally was like, yeah, I'll glaze for you. And once he had to provide food on the table, that's when he started finding the money. If you need the money, find the money. And he was like, cool. He started selling at Pike's Place Market in Seattle. Like, he watched Starbucks open, like in the 70s, right? Like the one on Pike's Place, he watched it open. And like I saw pictures of him like standing out with all these planters around. And he is like he's a hustler, and I think he is a really good example for me, just because he was like, yeah, once I had kids and I had to put food on the table, I started making more money. I found it. I figured out how to do it. And if you can't find out how to do it, you're not going to succeed. You have to find out how to do it, whether that be one way or the other. Please don't make it illegal or gamble. That's not a great idea. But you have to find a way.
And some of those you can learn. I guess some of that stuff is teachable, but some of it's not. It's like, what are you willing to do? And,
yeah,
how many hours are you willing to dedicate to this? Or what can you put on the back burner?
Yeah. And prioritizing, making lists, and all those things. P.S.
Right.
We did that podcast about transitioning into fall on October 4th. So.
October 4th. Okay. Nice. Does that help your numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
So
cool.
next week maybe we'll talk about our goals.
I already know I'm trending pretty well for the end of the year, so.
I'm not. That's fine though.
I don't have my goals for next year yet, but I guess maybe I need to get into that.
Well, we'll find out next week.
Wait, we're going to talk about that like the 10th? Next week?
Yes, because then it'll come out right at Christmas time.
Oh, we need to record it near Christmas.
No.
So it could be right at the end of the year. All right. I'll have enough data to look ahead to see what my goals. My goals are going to be very data driven and very numbers heavy.
How much money did you say that you wanted to make by the time?
I want to say mine was 25.
How much was mine? 30?
No, I don't know. I thought you said you wanted your total to be 75,000 for the year.
Oh, I've already hit that. So, okay.
I think, but you'll have to go back and listen, and we'll.
Yeah, we'll see. Cool. Was that okay? I feel like I don't know. I hope we answered. We should have a question podcast too.
Yeah, maybe that'd be a good wrap up at the end of the year as well.
Yeah.
Send us questions to our email, wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com.
Or Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, send us
DM
questions.
us.
We actually really like the questions. They fuel conversation. So if you want to send us more questions, we should probably be better about asking for them.
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to deadbeat.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thanks.
And we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to follow me or Ryan, you can follow us on our Instagrams. My Instagram is 5 Lines Pottery Studio. It's the number 5. And his Instagram is at RD Ceramics. That's R as in Ryan, D as in Durban, Ceramics. And we would love for you to follow us, but we would also love it if you gave us a review on whichever platform that you're listening on, and if you tell your friends. We really enjoy doing this, and we hope that we can do it some more and have some great conversations. Thanks!